Welcome back, gals, guys, and everyone else. I'm Hayze, this is Armouredbrownies, and we are about to sculpt something again. Now, like before with Roadhog, we're combining some 3D printed stuff, the filters, and the parts that hold the filter onto the mask, and we're going to sculpt another Roadhog. Another Roadhog! Yes! Because you need more tanks. However, this time, we're actually going to do a half mask, because this is something that a lot of people have requested, because I think some popular cosplayers did it where they just have half their face covered. And someone asked me to cut one of my masks in half, and I was a bit hesitant because they're designed to fit over the entire face, because if they sit on the top of the head, you get an air gap around the bottom, or vice versa, and it's all a little bit more comfortable. But if you just have the bottom half, it just like swamps your face, and their feedback basically reinforced that. So we are going to now sculpt a half Roadhog mask. So it's just going to be a big nose with these things in to mount the filters, and then it'll take the filters that I'm making for my full-size Roadhog mask. Today we are using a pre-made sculpting head. This is an Alana head from the Monster Makers Inc. at monstermakers.com, though I buy it from PS Composite because I'm in the UK. Also, we're going to be sculpting in wet clay, which is our water-based clay. Not like the Jin mask, which was Monster Clay, which is the oil and wax clay. This should be a lot quicker because I'm a lot more confident with it. And the primary tools we're going to be using for the first part of the sculpt, just so you feel more like you can do this at home, are my fingers and this blunt little knife. This is actually my favourite sculpting tool, weirdly enough, despite not actually being a sculpting tool. So, let's go! Right, first we laid down the foundations which defined the area which we wanted the mask. And now we've built up all of the anatomy, so all the overall shapes, we've gone over them, we've made sure they're all as even as possible, and then we've sketched out where the details are going to be. We haven't made these details properly yet because we just want to sketch them on to make sure that they go on symmetrically. But now we move on to actually putting the details on, that we're happy we've got a good solid base to be working for. This has been about 2 hours worth of sculpting so far. Let's carry on.
One thing to really make sure you're not being afraid of is to look at your sculpt from different angles. Like you see here, to get the details on the top of the nose, I actually leaned the entire sculpt over so I can look at it from a completely different direction. This is also really important for doing details on parts that you don't normally see when looking at it directly from the front. Whilst it definitely would be possible to sculpt the laces directly onto the mask, to add some consistency and to make sure they have a very solid line to the edges of them, where the rest of the mask has very nice organic flows, I actually use a sharp edge of a metal rule to cut some slices of clay that I then go and add afterwards, and then sculpt around these bits of clay to make it look like they're protruding out like laces.
one of the next steps to take one of my motorcycle boots stretch it over lace, and we're going to boop, boop, boop. Sculpting uses such complicated techniques. Look at how advanced these techniques are. There we go. And that's almost all of the detail put on. We're at a point now that we can't actually continue very easily because we've got to wait for the surface to dry out. Because it's water-based clay, I've been adding water to it as I've gone along, but now the surface is waterlogged and kind of a bit muddy and gunky. So I have to wait for that to dry out before I can put the final smoothing layer because the surface wants to be perfectly smooth. You might have noticed a couple of things. I wasn't using this Lazy Susan to sculpt on. It's because the head is made out of expanding foam. So it's easy to just lift up and sculpt from different angles, which is fantastic if you're used to working with, say, a plaster head, which is really heavy, so you can't like get under it very easy, or a polystyrene head, which is really, really light, so the weight of clay on the head weighs the whole thing forward, which means I need to glue it to the Lazy Susan. But this, it has a big enough base on the bottom that I can just sculpt on it and it won't overbalance forward, which is great. But just whilst we're waiting, should we test it out with our filters? So, put that in there, put that in there, and ba-da-da-da! That is basically how it will be once we hit the end step. Whilst you're here, be sure to subscribe to the channel, like me on Facebook, and also you can follow us on Instagram, where I will be sharing loads more work in progress photos of everything whilst I'm streaming and whilst I'm not. And don't forget to leave a comment with your favourite Overwatch pun or joke, because someone in chat on stream came up with a fantastic "it's time to go half hog" in relation to this mask. So, do you got any jokes? There's a lot of things I really like about this so far. So we're going to take that out and we are going to do the very important part now of adding time.
So join us next video to see what happens once that time has passed and how we take this sculpt to be a fully finished wearable mask. And you get to actually see the mask finished. You can kind of see it blurred in the background, so, you know, spoilers. Anyway, thanks for being with me. I'll see you soon.